Hello, everyone, and welcome to the discussion. This week, we are going to talk about a new subject. Previously, we talked about the rule of law or the Islamic law, and we also talked about different prophets. We talked about Jesus and Moses in the Quran and the perspective of the Quran and or the word view, the view of Quran on those prophets and the differences and similarities between the biblical figures and the Quranic stories. Especially we talked about the Jesus and the Mary in the Quran. The chapter is specified to Mary, and also the differences and the similarities. We discussed all of those. Now, maybe it's a good time to talk about Muhammad, how Muhammad is depicted in the Quran, and how you know simply you remember that we were talking about the prophets like Jesus and Moses, and we were saying that um Muhammad or Jesus' name repeated in the Quran in different times, or Moses' name was the one who was most repeated among the prophets in the Quran. But let's talk about the name of Muhammad in the revelation of God to him. I mean, uh, the revelation that the Muslim believe that God talks to Muhammad, and let's see. In fact, name of Muhammad is not repeated as name of Jesus and Moses repeated in the Quran. In fact, there are four times that name Muhammad is repeated in the Quran. Yes, we do have the name messenger or our messenger or Rasul or messenger or Nabi, but the name Muhammad is just repeated four times. But those four times is also kind of prizing his behavior and moral and ethics and the way he lives and the way he would be an example for other believers to follow him. Now, but generally speaking, before entering to our main discussion, it's important to see and notice that Muhammad is prophet of Islam, and Quran as the book that based on the Islamic belief is revealed to Muhammad is in fact a conversation, a dialogue, in fact, let's say, or a motion of God to Muhammad, but it's also dialogue, it's not a monologue, because there are people asking, there are Muhammad talking to God, and then there are answering. There are questions and answers in that book. So it's not just a monologue, but there's a dialogue. So when talking about the Muhammad in the Quran, one needs to pay attention to the fact that, in fact, Muhammad is in whole story of the Quran. I mean, you cannot say that, oh, name of Muhammad is just repeated four times, so what's important in the Quran? No, the fact is that the whole Quran is a conversation or talk to or dialogue to Muhammad at some point, at one point. And the second point, the name of Muhammad. I mean, when you talk to someone, you don't repeat his name repeatedly. And then the point is that Muhammad was addressed in the Quran, and I mean with different names like as Nabi or prophet or messenger, Rasul and Nabi. So there are many times that those names are repeated there, and one count them for Muhammad as well. But the point is that in what capacity Muhammad is addressed in the Quran. That's one of the important things. Um, if we look at the Quran and then those two main chapters, like chapters 8 and chapter 22, except many other chapters as well. But in the chapter 8 and 22, there are some points and some positions in which Muhammad and his followers, in fact, were addressed, and so which is kind of not only as a prophet, messenger, and Rasul and Nabi in the Arabic language, but there is another capacities of ruler, capacities as a you know general, capacities as a leader of community. and those we will discuss those later on and see how and why those things happened. But generally speaking, Quran talks to Muhammad. I mean, even reminds him that didn't we help you when you were an orphan, and then didn't we did this to you, did that to you? Didn't we help you to, be patient with the lots of troubles and problems and so and so, especially in the final chapters of the Quran. But today's discussion, let's look at the Muhammad in the Quran as ruler and general, at the same time prophet. And then don't forget that we do always have this kind of configuration and combination in the biblical prophets as well. I mean, like when you talk about David, you talk about Solomon, you do have this combination of figures as well. Yeah, they were among the Jewish prophets, and at the same time, they were rulers, they were kings, they were having great kingdom. Muhammad's kingdom was, I mean, I cannot say that the kingdom, but his rulership was not as vast as, for instance, David and Solomon's. But let's talk about how it happens and, what was the basic to say Muhammad was a ruler or a general. So Muhammad as a ruler and general, and then what basically we need to know about this is that when we talk about Muhammad as ruler, as general, we should notice that this is the Medinan part of his life. During the Meccan part, Muhammad was under persecutions by polytheists and people of Quraysh, and those followers of him were little in numbers, and also some of them, forcibly, they had to migrate to uh, Ethiopia to save their lives, and because those enemies and opponents were not standing with their new message of new one God, and uh, rejecting their idols and bringing new norms of beliefs and faith. It was against their ancestral faith and their culture, because definitely and basically Muhammad was talking about different rights, laws, and faces and principles of faith, which was not in accordance with the principles of the society in Mecca. So they were against him. So what happens? The point is that after Meccan period, after 13 years of those persecutions and problems that Muslims had, uh, they were allowed to go and migrate to Medina, those who were left in Mecca, because some of them, about 80 people, they went to Ethiopia. But one also needs to know that those who were in Mecca with Muhammad, they were among the poorest of the society. They were not wealthy, except some very, two, three of them among them, Abu Bakr, Muhammad's friend. So no wealthy and poor, mostly poor, And no, they had to immigrate to Medina because they needed to save their lives. And we also need to know that Muhammad's life to return, even he was under protection of his grandfather and later on his uncle, but his life was threatened by those people of Quraysh. What does this means is that when a society like a Quraysh society, pre-Islamic, so those opponents of Muhammad, they know that such and such people, they converted to religion of Muhammad. They were kind of abandoning those people, abandoning with like the relation. Uh, Sometimes they attacking them physically, but on the other hand, they were kind of sanctioning them, isolating them, so they had no way to have incomes. They have no way, and they were losing their wealth. If they had a home, for instance. So what happens when they go to Medina? When they go to Medina, so if they had a home, I mean, they left everything they had. I mean, their homes, their wealth, because they had to flee. It was not like a I decide, but like in a modern world, it's like taking a refugee because of something terrible happened to your home and country, and your life in danger, and then you go as refugee from other countries. So Medinan people came to Muhammad and they had a conversation in secret with him, and they told him that we do uh, welcome you and your people, and we accept your religion. Come to Medina, become our leader, and yeah, we live there, and we protect you as well. So Muslims and finally Muhammad and Ali, they had to flee Mecca and go to Medina. Now, with their going to Medina, they're, those poor people, they had nothing. I mean, economically, they had no life, no home, nothing. And like in modern world, you do have national or international institution supporting and protecting the refugees. But in that society, there was no such institution. So what Muhammad did was one to so one to he tried to connect each of one of those migrants to one Medinan people, so they become like brothers, and those they like invited the brothers to their home, supported them, as a food, giving them food or providing probably a place to sleep, but mostly those people of Mecca, some of them they were sitting around the mosque that Mohammedan people they built in the center of the Medina. Now, they historically they were called Ahlus Sufa, the people of those who were sitting and kind of living and gathering around the mosque. Now, the point is that so they those people had everything of themselves um, left in the Mecca. And what happened next was that those people of Mecca, when they understood that these people have left, so they started to collecting their wealth, their homes, selling them, getting money for themselves. Now, it was a kind of probably first or second years after um, this migration, which is called hijrah in Islamic language, a, a caravan of Meccan businessmen and wealth trying to go to Syria through enclosed, in a close distance from Medina. So Muslims were informed about this, and so they thought that, okay, we are going to revenge them because then they got our wealth, and then we go to get our wealth back. At the same time, Meccan people were informed that those in Medina, they understood that you are having a caravan, a group of, you know, uh, your wealth, your business trip goes toward Syria. So they are they so it might be, you know, challenged by Muslims in Medina, and so you may lose your wealth. So they thought what to do. They gathered a large army at that time, about 1,000 people with horses, with camels, with sword, with whatever needed, and as a like a perfect army of the day. And as this group of army were about 1,000 people. And so, what about Muslims? Muslims were a group of 300, and some of the Meccan they were fighting. Some of the Medinan they didn't. They they didn't say that they fight. They were just, you know, accompanying the Medinan. So Muslims, when they went out of the city of Medina to fight with the Meccan, so they were facing two different things. One is an army of 1,000 people. The other one is the caravan and the walls in it. God in the Quran says that you wanted to get, you know, that caravan, but God wants you to fight with this an army. But listen, the point is that the Muslim army is like people. They had only 2 or 3 horses, and every 3 person apparently in that fight had 1 camel. So they tried. So they were you know, fight among them. But what happens that the Muslims with the amount of the with the little number, with the less equipped and with the arm, were so they conquer. They you know, won the war. Now at the end of the war, they do have, well, you know, some people who were you know, Sikh refugee to Muslims. Uh, uh, some of the enemy killed, and also some, there's about 15 people from Muslim killed and some wounded. But generally, Muslim, you know, won the war, and this is the first war, which is called Badr in the history of Islam. Now, afterward, after that war, so there are some loss coming to Muslims because they fight it, they defeat the enemy, and then uh, the wealth, something there, how to divide it, what to do with those things. So the chapter 8 called Al-Anfal specifically talks about those wealths that are there, and so what to do with this, and who is going to divide them. You know, the chapter starts with this question. They are asking you about Anfal. Yes, Alunaka Anil Anfal. They are asking you about uh, those, you know, leftover things that are there. Generally speaking, people probably were quarreling, talking about, okay, I guess this might be mine because, you know, I had a horse here, and then I get more. Someone else will say that I'm poor, you know, I have to, you know, I have nothing. I mean, I need to have a camel. So, but the Quran says that قُلِ الْأَنْفَالُ لِلَّهِ وَلِرَسُولِهِ. Tell them that this leftovers is belong to God and His Prophet. Now, one may say that, oh, why? What's the problem? Why to God and prophet? Uh, it appears that if we translate that Anfal into modern language, it's a commonwealth, it's a public wealth, and each country, if each rulers, you know, when you rule a country, when you rule a society and community, we need to have some resources, and then those Anfal were working as a resource to serve the society. Now, so then Muhammad becomes a ruler, a divider, someone who says that, okay, your share is this based on your merit and based on what and what, and everyone gets this amount of, you know, wealth, and so we distribute such and such in this way or that way. So again, this chapter 8 and chapter also 22 as well, they talk to Muhammad, they talk to believers in a way that, um, now you are living, and this is the condition, and then you have to have this certain rules or this certain functionality and rule over people with these laws. And then Muhammad becomes a ruler, becomes a general as well in the fight, how to fight. Because those people, they didn't have, an experience in fighting. They were not the army people. They were just common people. Just they had their face. I mean, they converted to Islam, nothing else. And now, generally going back to wars, I mean, speaking about the war and fights in the history of religion and religions, and also in the history of Islam, is one of the fascinating talks and one of the most controversial talks when people talk about it, when especially like Christian talk about Muslim, Muslim talk about Christian or Jews or whatever. Now, when a group of people had a certain ideology, a certain belief, and whatever, they encountered enemies, they encountered opponents, and sometimes based on very different measures that encounter, whether sometimes it's just a discussions, but sometimes it becomes as war and fight, because the idea is your ideology is, affecting my people, affecting my land, and I don't want to let you to do this. But anyway, within the religion, those who were within the religion as well, I mean, traditionally, they were thinking that fight is a certain way of protecting the law of God, or a certain way of protecting their community, or certain way to defend themselves. Now, there are many discussions describing the like Islam as a religion of sport. Those historians, when talk in very detail about Islam, mostly they are describing the way Muslim entered into any fight and war. And mostly they described them, they were little in number, they had less armor, so they were weaker, but in some fights they were able to, defeat the enemy. At the same time, there are some other fights that they defeated as well. But what Quran talks, how Quran talks to them, Quran doesn't say that, oh, thank you very much, you did it good. Yes, encourage them. I mean, if some of them got killed, said that Quran tells them that those who killed in the way of in the path of God, they were, they are um, 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 getting going to the paradise. They were there is something for them from God, which is much more better than the life on the earth and things like this. But sometimes also criticize Muslim that, okay, you're talking about leftover, you're talking about the things that you get, the physical materials or the walls, but remember that you have to be friends with each other. One, also you have to remember God, and then be aware that all those things belong to God and His prophet, and He's the one who decides about those things. So, religions, generally had this concept of fighting for their faith. I mean, and then there's a notion of martyrdom. How martyrdom comes into the discussion and talk of any religion or religious. I mean, you do have sample of martyrs in Christianity or in Judaism as and things like that. So I mentioned earlier that yes, Muhammad had to go to leave Mecca because of the harassment, and some of the Muslim had to migrate to Abyssinian, and some other Muslim also blocked. There's a story that those who were converted to Islam in Mecca for 3 consecutive years were isolated and blocked in a space in Arabic called Sha'b Abi Talib, and no one had the right to sell them anything. So they were living a life a day with a date with very little number of very little resources to eat or to drink. So they had many actually uh, problems and difficulties in Mecca, so they migrated in Medina. Now, what happens in Medina when you have this society, as mentioned? Yes, you do have problems, you do have questions, you do have this and that comes up, and then you don't know the answer, or you are talking about, okay, I guess this is mine, or that's not yours, and then Quran comes in and talks about that. Um, um, so also we should remember that in both in Medina, when Muhammad goes to Medina, he had a group of people, Muslim, and also has a group of people like Jews or Christians in Medina as well. So generally and basically, as very primarily act, he does contact with them and had contract with them. So talking to them as a leader of Muslim community, that we do have an agreement. They reached an agreement that if we are under attack, you protect us too, and if you are under attack or there is some problem with you, we are helping you. Which but later on something happened about the Jewish part in this agreement, and finally some Jewish tribe had to leave Medina. Now, the very first war that I basically discussed about it comes after 1 year or 2 years after Muslims' migration to Medina. Upon the migration, I mean, all the years that they were in Mecca, they had no right, and God commanded them not to fight with the uh, opponents. Now they are in Medina, and so the question is that, as I mentioned, that a group of Quran tells to those people that now you can fight them back probably, and then this is fighting back. If they get to you, you pay them back or response them in fight. But the situation in Mecca is not like this. You They have to say nothing to them. Just be patient with all those things. So let's continue the discussion. Now we talked about Muhammad in Medina, and we talked about he becomes a ruler or a king, or not a king in fact, but the leader of community. Also, he is a prophet at the same time. And then we talk about how Muhammad and Muslim, they are confronting the opponents which is coming from Mecca. So now, and then we said another point that Muhammad and his people were not allowed to fight back with those polytheists in Mecca. So what happens now is that they are going to, you know, um, they are going to encounter those people. But those people are coming in two different ways. I mean, in two groups. One group is the caravan, and then there are some guards to that, and there's another army of 1,000 people, a fully armed like army. Um, so there is a place called Badr, and this is a place that these group of people meeting each other when Muslims and the caravan and the army. So the point is that now God gives permission to the believers to fight back, and then commands them for jihad to go and fight. And then we know that this word jihad is very controversial in any discussion about Islam, because jihad as well has this meaning to this struggle, but the core, one of the very core concepts of it is that the jihad is divided into two. I mean, it's not correct to say that jihad is not a fight, but it is a fight with your egos. But in fact, the correct point is that to say that, yes, jihad is divided into two forms in Islam. One is the jihad when you have enemy and then you are fighting back. And then the other sort of jihad, which is this jihad with the enemy, is called the the jihad with the, I mean, fight with the enemy in the battleground is called the small jihad or jihad asghar, and there is another one which is called jihad akbar, or the greatest jihad, which is fighting back with the inner ego and Satan, and trying to purify your soul and yourself. So that's another discussion about jihad. Now we are talking here that Quran goes that tells people that you can fight them back. So there is two groups are coming from Mecca to Medina. It says that in the chapter 8, verse 7 and 8, says that when God promised you one of the two enemies or parties, that it should be yours, one of them should be yours. You wish that the one unarmed should be yours. But God willed to justify the truth according to his word and to cut off the roots of the unbelievers, that he might justify truth and prove falsehood false. So the point is that the Quranic verse try to tell people in the Muslim that you are going to face and encounter those an armed army, not quite unarmed army. So, but if you have faith, I mean, see how God and then how and then the way He forms fighting with enemy works. It says that if you have a faith in God and believe in Him, then He's going to fight. He's going to help you in the battleground. In fact, what happens as well in the history is that Muslims, as mentioned, Muslims were little in the number, little in the armor, and then they were defeated the enemy. Now, how Quran interprets the Badr? You said that I said this is the first war, and this is the first victory for Muslim. Oh yeah, So let's see what Quran says. There has already been for you a sign in the armies that met. One was fighting in the cause of God, in the way of God, and the other resisting God. These saw with their own eyes twice their number. But so what happens? So one of the things that God tells you that God told Muslim that I am going to help you is that what? To waste your number in the eye of the enemy. So they saw you more than the number that you really are. But God supports with his aid whom he pleases. So God supports. And this is a warning for such as have eyes to see. So those people who understand this, they must be warned with this. So God goes to the help of those believers. And also, and remember when you met in the battle, he showed them to you as viewing your eyes. So the reverse is working here for the Muslim as well. They were little in number, and then they saw those enemy as little as well. And he made you appear as contemptible in their eyes, that God might accomplish a matter already enacted. So that's the change in the vision, change in the seeing, making less or making more into sight, and then that's one of the aids of God. And also, chapter 8, verse 17 again, it was not you who killed them, it was God. So the point is that in the vision, in the divine vision, is that whatever you do is with the power that God gives you. So finally the actor is God in this way, this way of putting or translating the word of God. It was not you who killed them, because in the battle, many of those, a good number of the polytheists and the major, heads of those enemies or opponents of Muslim were killed. So it was God. When you throw a handful of dust, it was not you act, but God act, in order that he might test the believers by a gracious trial from himself. So this is another help of God. it was not you who threw those things, it was God. And so it shows that uh, basically one of the aspects of the war in the Muslim, among the Muslim, I mean, in the history, when they talk about the war in Islamic history, is that God supported the believers. They were small in the numbers, and God supported them in different ways. So here in the picture, we can see a better, figure here, which shows like how Muslim defeated them. The point is that the point was that although the Badr was the first fight between Muslim and polytheists, and the Muslim defeated their enemies. After that defeat, which was helped Muslim to to be proud of the what they did, when polytheists returned to Mecca, they thought to revenge, and therefore they talked to their neighbor tribes, and they provided an army of 3,000 people. And for next year, they decided to go and fight back the Muslims. So now the point is that this second war, which happened in 625, is called the fight of Uhud. And then this is the fight that Muslim defeated, and God didn't help them. Because of what? Because I'll tell you the story. So the Muslims, first in the beginning of this war, they were informed that the enemy is coming to them, so they were waiting for them. According to the plan, they fought with them, and in fact, they defeated the enemy. There was a group of Muslims that their commander asked them to stay in about to the mountain which is called Jabal Uhud, or the mountain Uhud, and asked them to not move from their position until he tells them. But the problem was that when they noticed that it appears that we defeated the enemy, and there are a lot of loots in the battleground, let's go and get what we want. There are horses, there are swords, or whatever they had. The problem is that it was in that side, in the same time, that enemy, although was defeated, but as they also saw that the Muslim left their positions, a remaining group of their number was good. There was 3,000 people. A group of them, they turned that mountain, and from behind they tried to attack Muslims. They killed many of those Muslims, and they defeated them. Now this is the second war, which is called Uhud. And then another main problem and issue was that enemy tried to say that they were able to kill Muhammad. So Muslim, hearing that Muhammad was killed, they were losing. They were not as strong as before, and then they defeated only a small group of Muslims. They were understood that Muslim the enemies attacking from behind. They went to protect the Muslim. They went to stop them, and there was a very serious and heavy battle. And but generally Muslim defeated, and many of them wounded. Now you do have the idea of defeat. I mean, the first war you had the idea of victory. So, what God and in which language God talks to Muslim? Yes, Quran criticized them because they had, especially those group of Muslims, that they had to stop and stay in their position until the commander would say that, okay, you are released now. But they didn't, and they went for the, notes, and so that God says that you did bad thing. I mean, you were supposed to stay where you were ordered to. So the idea is that with criticizing, so you didn't do that, you didn't do this, and then the it function as defeat. I mean, it doesn't function as a victory if you don't follow the rules. And um, but in the contrary, if you are firm, if you act right, even if the enemy should rush here on you in hot haste, your Lord would help you with 5,000 attacking angels. So again, the story of angels comes in. And if you do fight, if you do believe in God, and if you do have faith in Him, He's going to help you. Now, so these are the aid and help of God that are coming toward the Muslim. On the other hand, when God sees that Muslims are defeated and they are sad and upset, probably, He tells them that if you do not lose your heart and not to fall into despair, you must gain mastery if you are to win faith. I mean, again, there must be another help of God coming to you if you follow those rules. So don't think that also that did you think that you would enter heaven without God testing those of you who found hard and remind steadfast? So also when Muslims they thought that okay, we go to war and then God helps us, we don't need to do much, and Muhammad is here, and then miracles are coming, and we are the we are the one who wins the war. But the point is that Quran tells them the contrary. It says that Muhammad is no more than a messenger. Many were the messengers that passed away before him, like many other messengers. If he dies or he's slain, especially it's just speaking about the Uhud, because in the battleground, the Muslim heard that our prophet is, killed by enemy. So Quran tells them that if he dies or if is slain or wounded, would you then turn back on your heels? Are you going to be, non-Muslim again? If any did turn back on his heels, not the least harm will he do to God. So there's no harm goes to God with your action, but the point is that you will lose. So talking to Muslim in this way that follow the Prophet, and you will be winning with the winner. There's also another battle between Muslim and enemy that happened. It's called the Battle of the Trench or the Al Khandaq. In this battle, Muslim will discuss among each other to how to defend themselves in front of the enemy. The enemy was coming with probably about 10,000 men fighting with Muslims, the number of Muslims always was less than them because they were less in number, and but they were in the city of Medina, and then they were thinking that how to define how to protect themselves. One of the idea which comes in here is that so they came with the idea of making a trench and separating themselves an enemy and then to be able to fight with them, and that gives them time and space. And Quran comments on this in chapter 33, verses 9 to 27. There is also something happens here in this Muslim, Muhammad as leader, as general. In this fight, figure out a group of people, they may telling them that, yeah, if you go to fight, we come with you. But finally, they were not, they were sort of people that they become converted to Islam. They were Muslim, they were living in Medina, and then they were unenthusiastic, new Muslims probably, or those who just become Muslim and then they didn't want to go to battle, or intentionally they were allied with the here. The point is that something happens here. All those groups in the Medina, they're supposed to work with each other, whether they are Muslim, Christian, or Jews. Something happened. Politics are coming with 10,000 armed men to fight with them in Medina. The point is that probably in the Jews who were living in the city of Medina, first they said that we are with you, Muhammad, and with the Muslim. But the problem is that they had sort of discussion, probably Meccan sent people to those Jews and saying that, listen, we are coming with 10,000 people. Those Muslims are like 1,000. We defeated them last time. And then we are coming with the more people. And then if you are with them, then you will be defeated, period. But if you are with us, don't help them. And then, we come and then you help us. So there are a number of Muslims as well who are turning to to be allied with the Jews, and sort of cheating with the Muslim. Those Muslims were 3,000 in general who fought in the battle of the trench. So in that battle, finally Muslim got the victory. But there was a concept of one, the problem of Jews, and second one, the problem of those, Muslim who cheated on other Muslim. They in the Arabic language they call al-munafiqun, or in the English the translation is hypocrites. And so this is the notion that comes to the Quran, the discussion of Quran as well. Quran talks later on about those hypocrites, those who said that, yeah, we have the same faith as you, but they said that they just said it, their heart was not Muslim, and things like this. This is a notion that happens here following the circumstances that happen. Following the circumstances that happens in Medina, especially around the Battle of Khandaq. So these munafiqun are resisting the call for jihad. But God tells them in chapter 9, verse 38, "Oh, you who believe, what is the matter with you, that when you are asked to go forth in the path of God, you clinch heavily to the earth? Do you prefer the life on this world to the hereafter? Unless you go forth, He will punish you with a grievous penalty." Now, so those people, God talks to them, God warns them, and There's one problem. I mean, some of the scholars, they try to find out who those people are, but you mostly in most cases you don't have their names. You don't have their names. But you should understand that there were a group of people among the Muslims that who said that we are Muslim, but they didn't, according to Quran, they didn't believe it. They didn't have a face in it. They just mentioned that we are Muslim like you. Uh, so going to Medina, encountering the opponents and enemy from Mecca, encountering these, munafiqun, hypocrites in Medina, encountering the battlefield problems with those people that, like the problem with Jews, which is quite significant in the city of Medina, but not when I say that the problem with Jews, it doesn't mean the problem with Judaism. It means that the tribes that were living there. Okay, what comes last between Muhammad and the people of Mecca? The period of time, the time period Muhammad is in Medina is 10 years. He passed away in the last, after 10 years. Badr was the first fight in the first year after immigration. Then another fight was, the Quraysh wanted to revenge. It's called Uhud. The Muslim defeated. The first one, Muslim won the fight. And then there is also Al-Khandaq, the third one that we discussed, and Muslims defeated the enemy in that one. Now, what comes at the end? I mean, the final thing between Muslim and polytheist of the enemy, which is inside the peninsula, is that there's a peace agreement. The peace agreement and ceasefire with Mecca, which is called Al-Hudaybiyah. What it says, we know that the whole city of Mecca, the city of Mecca included, or was a place to be the most sacred Muslim worship house, or what is called Kaaba. So, but Muslim had to go and for a pilgrimage to Mecca. In the relation, there was under that certain bad relation between Muslim and polytheists, there was no way for Muslim to perform their, act of pilgrimage. Muhammad comes finally with an agreement with the head of polytheists. But that agreement was also under another circumstances. Muslim became more stronger. There were other people becoming Muslim, other tribe becoming Muslim. They were expanding, not only limited in the city of Medina, but expanded. There were tribes, there were group allies, new allies, more and more. And then, so probably enemy, they thought that, okay, they are not going to fight forever, or they cannot defeat Muslim. So they come into an agreement, at least a 10-year peace agreement. And but inside that agreement, one point was that, okay, Muslim can go to the Hajj pilgrimage and then for 10 years, but they are not supposed to be armed. They should go unarmed. And if someone returns to Mecca, okay, let them return to Mecca. But not reverse. Uh, After this peace agreement, the Quran talks about it as a manifest victory, because Muhammad was able to, you know, deal a peace with the most important enemy of him, Muslims, with no fighting and with a discussion and an agreement, and then give the Muslim a chance to travel to Mecca, to go to pilgrimage, and then, you know, to be free and to expand their own business. Quran chapter 48 again talks about this and says that those who pledge alliance to you do no less than pledge their alliance to God. So the pledge alliance to Muhammad means they pledge alliance to God. The hand of God is over their hand. So when they pledge Muhammad, they pledge alliance with God. Then anyone who violates his oath does so to the harm of his own soul. So God asked them to keep the promises, to follow this, and then do not violate the oath. So this agreement goes on and at least makes a better condition for Muslim. So Quran as well, we said that talks about this, and there was a discussion. Now the question of the peaceful or peace agreement between Muslim and non-Muslim, or with their enemy. I mean, the probably one of the point is that if they are in fight, but finally they can reach to the peace agreements. So probably one of the example was Israel and Palestine, and sometimes the peace agreement and things that goes on there was I mean, there's a Quranic support for that piece as well. But one major question is that when we talk about Islam, although many scholars they mention the historic academic study of religion, and then they depict that the wars in Islam is not for to forcefully convert others. Mostly what they did in the 10 years in Medina, they were fighting back once. They I mentioned that the first fight was called Badr, and the second, I mean, they were kind of, according to Muslim tradition, it was defeating themselves, protecting themselves, or getting. At the first one, they wanted to get back their wealth, but it became a serious fight with the enemy's army protecting the caravan of Abu Sufyan. Now, when we discuss again about jihad in Islam, I said to you, there's a notion of the smaller jihad with the bigger jihad or greater jihad. So jihad as well. I mean, traditionally as well, among the Muslims, one of the concept was that this is a struggle with the soul, and it is a spiritual, not bodily jihad. And but even if it is a small jihad, it is only included war against the unbelievers, in the fact that not any unbelievers, but the unbelievers who are fighting you, not those who are not fighting you. Because basically in the Quran, all people of religions are, people of the book. And then there are very certain group of people that they were opponents of the Muslim and then fighting with them. Those are the unbelievers. Now, one question is that can a fight with those a special group of enemy be offensive or defensive? There are many discussions here. As a Muslim tradition says that an offensive fight, especially in the Shia Islam, could only and only happen under the rule of Prophet or one of the 12 Imam in the Shias. Otherwise, you cannot have offensive attack. It is not allowed because it must be certainly authorized by God, as it happened in the case of the Badr, the first fight. You cannot have offensive fight with someone else for no reason, and it must be allowed by God. You must get the permission. That's the way that God, Quran talks about when Muslim migrate to Medina from Mecca. Quran tells them that now you are permitted to fight back. So that's one of the cases. So there's a Shia dilemma of jihad. There's a Shia dilemma of jihad in the absence of the Imam. There's no way to fight, or in the absence of Prophet. But basically, Islamic law of war is that so the lands that Muslims are living themselves are called the Dar al-Islam. The lands in which they do have opponents or an enemy that is fighting them. So it's called also Dar al-Harb. These are concepts that not in the Quran, but in the general historical discussion of Muslim. And there's a Dar al-Sulh, the land of peace. I mean, the land with the nations that you are in peace. I mean, there's no problem with you and them. So, as mentioned, the notion of offensive jihad is that the conquering territory for Islam, but this can only be declared by legitimate authority, Imam and Shia or Prophet, not anyone else. And then, who is gonna? I mean, is this upon everyone, every Muslim? It is called that it is farz kifaya, means that sufficiency duty. That if someone else is going to do this battle under the rule of Prophet or Imam, then there's enough number of people, then it's not upon everyone to go there. But in practice, and Islamic history, especially after Muhammad, when Muslim expanded, there were some conquests and there were some wars against the Byzantines that happened, but we cannot call them as act of like a religious fight. Especially scholarly books tell us that in most cases, the fights or conquests were not for conversions. But anyway, let's look at the Islamic conduct of war. It must be declared, first of all, give enemies opportunities to accept Islam. They say that, okay, you have time to accept Islam. And then there should not be attack to those who are not fighting, only attack to combatants, and not unnecessary destruction. For instance, you should not cut down fruit trees. You should not, harm the businesses, whatever. And then accept surrenders. If someone tells that I am surrendered, then accept. Or if someone says that I become Muslim, then it must be accepted. So what happens to the loser in those kind of wars? The point is that no conversion, conversion by the sword. I mean, you cannot force people to convert. Cities that are surrounded, not to be sacked. So you're not supposed to, get bounties from the cities that are surrounded. Even if you get the rule was that if they were conquering the city, they must not. Um, they must keep the place of worship as it is. But when the ruler was Muslim, they were not allowing a new, worship place to be built. And then usually in the history, I'm not talking about the early Islam. We're talking, for instance, for the uh, Ottoman Empire, which was like 500 years ago. Normally, main churches in those, um, cases converted to mosque, which with the last one, but there was 2 months ago a discussion about the Blue Mosque in Istanbul. And then there was another thing that when Muslim conquered another city and with people of different other faces, and then they were telling that you're under the rule of Islamic or Muslim ruler, then you have to pay a certain tax, a poll tax to be paid by non-Muslim to the government, as as to be protected or whatever. Now, there's a little more discussion about the rulership or theocracy in Islam. If religion, if any prophet, as David, for instance, or as Solomon, they are a ruler, then the question is that whether they rule on behalf of themselves or they rule on behalf of God. So, who is ruling? Is that God? And then, who can declare to be a ruler that is supported by God? Is it only prophet or any other people that gain power in those societies and then they can declare that we are the ruler of God? Yes. In the history, then everyone who ruled over Muslims, for instance, or over the Christians or other religion, they were trying to say that they are, authorized and supported by God. So they are, historically was the king was the shadow of God. We know that in the Medina, for instance, which was kind of a small Islamic theocracy. Muhammad was a ruler in the name of God. The Quran declares this. Support, probably you can find the support of Quran in this. And then what happened after the death of Prophet is that there are two people, three people, at least two people were Abu Bakr and Umar were successor of Muhammad, and then probably the point is that there were coming slowly the fights within the Islamic and Muslim communities. A group of people were saying that only Ali can be the successor of Prophet based on their understanding of Islam, based on the uh, resources and support and ideas or hadiths of prophetic hadiths and narration they had. And then some other group is saying that no, Abu Bakr is the first caliph, and after him is the Umar, and after him is Uthman. And then finally, people went to home of Ali and asked him to be leader, and Ali got to be, became the leader of Muslim community. And after 5 years, he was also killed by another group of Muslims, which were historically called Khawarij. And then finally, later on, you do have the monarchies of Umayyad and Abbasid, which took several hundred years, in the history of Islam, up to the again other monarchies like Safavid in Iran, or Ottomans in the modern Turkey, but it was bigger than Turkey. Okay. So following the Muhammad, there was a question of the success, who is the successor of Muhammad, and there was a discussion and quarrel among the Muslims themselves. And I'm not going to discuss about all these concepts, but we are going to probably pay attention to some modern aspects of this theocracy in Islam. Now, one of the points is that does Muhammad, if you accept that Muhammad was the ruler of God or by God, or authentic ruler and supported by God, then the question is that can everybody else also support? Did Muhammad, give kind of authority for other people to be, ruler as supported by God? So, in this, we all know that there are two branches of Sunni and Shia Islam, and in the Sunni Islam there were, kind of mainly those Umayyad and some sort of Abbasid accepted, ruled over the Sunni majority Muslim. Shia Muslim, they had their own smaller kind of community, and the biggest sort of government that they made part of them in as Fatimid in Egypt, and later as Safavid in Iran. But in the modern time, we do have a notion that says that the vicegerency of the cleric, which is called Wilayat al-Faqih, and then this is the good example of this is consequently after Iranian Islamic Revolution in 1979, where Ayatollah Khomeini declared that he had created the notion of the supremacy of the jurist in the Islamic society, and the consequence was the merging of the religion and the state in those Islamic societies. On the other hand, in some sort of Sunni Muslim, there were some scholars that were trying to talk about jihad in a way that Muslim communities must fight with those enemies, and then they find enemies as the Western, and then you do some of them also the reviving the notion of Islamic Caliphate, and then saying that it must be revived, and what we must have those sort of system of governing among the Muslim. Now, Consequently, there are many discussions when you talk about colonialism, when you talk about the Muslim societies, when you talk about uh, political disorders in the Muslim society, the modern Muslim societies. And so many things, probably many social, economical, cultural, political issues come together to create kind of a notion among the some of the Muslim scholars as to say that we need to revive the good Muslim days, make it sort of great again idea. And then, one of them was uh, probably Egyptian scholars like Hassan al-Banna, Sayyid Qutb, and others. They were discussing and trying to say that the Western style of life is the new Jahiliyyah. Jahiliyyah means the society. An example, pre-Islamic Mecca. And then we discussed today that Muslim or fight Muslim or Quran defines those people as unbelievers and those who were in the real fight with the Muslim and Islam. So these people, they uh, they were saying that so that those societies are kind of jahili and then you have to fight them back. So this created also a group and networks and associations, probably in kind of a hidden one in first among the Muslim, and resulted in redefining that Dar al Harb, we are in fight with the West and things like that. And then you see the ISIS Al Qaeda network and things like that. That basically they come into the defining themselves on the West under those certain mentalities that there's a fight. The problem with those is that they also do not accept many other Muslims as Muslim. They do expand the very notion of unbelievers to everyone else, and literally to everyone else, except themselves. And those created problems. So that's the problem of extremists and extremism. Extremism in a political sense, extremism or fundamentalism in the sense that only me and not others. And this existed and probably quite exists in any other religions and communities. That for main scholars, those are not religion, but those are things that happens uh, um, in religions and among the people. They declare something, and um, probably for many Muslim, it's an abuse of religion. So, discussion of the case of Muhammad and war and ruler and you know and sort of governor or notions like this is kind of very vast and um, complicated as well. We do have sources like Quran, but we do have also sources like Hadith or historical books. But historical books, they do have contradictions. Hadiths as well, you do have some hadiths that are helpful to give us a picture of what happened, but you do not. I mean, but probably the more clearer resource and source to give you a picture is the Quran, and that's why we try to look at the Quran and see very, very briefly what Quran talks about. Muhammad in Medina, and not all the aspects, but the aspect which is kind of deals with his leadership or his being as a commander and general. So thank you very much, and I wish you